Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Hey, Tom. How's it going?
Tony, that was about as exactly as I've expected a football game to play out, as a football game has played out in a long time. I think when Minnesota won the toss, took the ball, I'm like, oh, they've got something here. They think they've got something. And then they went down and they kicked the field goal. I was like, oh, okay. You and I both picked Minnesota to score exactly 3 points. And that was the moment that I was like, I bet we're both going to be exactly right. I think that was it. That was their punch. And they took their swing. Right. And it was like, well, good try. We'll see you next week.
They're just trying to avoid the shutout and then just run the clock out from there. Yeah, that was a drive where let's see what happens after the script is done. And we did. And frankly, once you get into the red zone, that now the real trouble begins against the Ohio State defense. 42-3 for the Buckeyes. Tom, second week in a row, an Ohio State opponent is 1 for 11 on third downs. Does that have anything to do with how good the defense is?
We'll have some sound bites later on in the show from PJ Fleck. We got to take just a little bit of PJ Fleck's press conference before Ryan Day came in, and you sort of got a sense for the general tone of his comments, which was basically, we got a good football team. The problem is that's an incredible football team. I think the word he used was an exceptional. We got a really good football team. That's an exceptional football team. And it's really, this is kind of James Franklin Saturday. And this is like the James Franklin postgame press conference where he's like, we're great. We need to be elite. Minnesota was really good, which is not great, but they're really good. But it was very clear they were completely outclassed. Like they just got whooped on the line of scrimmage. And Fleck talked about the fact that they were down 14-3, and he went for it on 4th and 1 in their own end. And he basically, this is one of these sound bites you'll hear later, but he basically said, yeah, man, what do you want me to do? Like, I can punt it, and then they're just going to have a 90-yard touchdown drive instead of a 45-yard touchdown drive. That doesn't really accomplish anything. Give it a shot. You lost at the line of scrimmage. Ohio State won that play. Ohio State just kind of dominated the game. We do have a super chat we got to punch up here. Mike Farino says, Tim, Tony, you have heard of the backup quarterback is better than the starter controversy, but you've heard of the backup offensive line is better than the starting offensive line controversy / sarcasm.
Yeah, well, we did see Josh Padilla go in at right guard this week instead of Ethan Onyeonwa for a moment or two. We saw
Ian Moore for like one snap after Philip Daniels lost his helmet. Yeah,
tore his own helmet off for a change.
Oh, is that what happened?
So yes.
His helmet popped off and there wasn't a flag, and I thought that was weird.
Yeah,
how did that happen?
I think it's just he did it on his own maybe, but yeah, I mean, we need to see more from the offensive line because we still need to see more from the running game, and the breakdown 13 for 63 for Bo Jackson. You saw James Peoples tear it up late at the end. That was good to see, some confidence building, certainly for him. But 30 carries for 133 yards, 4.4 yards per carry. It's not very good yet. It's not good yet. It's above average to average right now. I would say average. It's not above average. It's there as it's there to prop up the passing game so that you don't just become like this pass happy thing right now. Now, Bo Jackson, long of 10, average 5 yards a carry, 4.8. It's effective enough, and I think everybody expects that he will continue to do well. But they need more, and I don't know, just 133 yards does not do anything for me when 50 of those came on like the last two drives.
Right. And I think Minnesota kind of, and this is something else we'll hear in more detail from PJ Fleck about later in the show, I think Minnesota just kind of had to pick their poison, and they, I can just read you the yards per play here, yards per rush 4.4, yards per we have yards per completion, and that's 14.2, and Ohio State completed about 90% roughly of their passes. So basically 14 yards per pass, 4 yards per rush. You can guess which poison Minnesota picked.
Yeah, still deadly.
Yes.
And it was
hemlock.
It was the Carnell Tate poison, 9 for 183. He had catches of 44, 48, and 49.
That would have been a real good goal prediction. 3 sequential catches of more than 40 yards.
That would have been a 3-pointer. Got to see, this is Max Clare's best game as a Buckeye. 5 catches, 63 yards. he got to be used more than just on the sideline, immediately step out of bounds because the throw is heading you that way. So they used him in some good ways. Jeremiah Smith gets his customary 2 touchdowns. I thought this may have been Julian Sayin's best game throwing the ball, because he was, I don't know if he took it personally that some people were calling out his deep passing recently, but he was on point. This was, Tim May said it, and we were talking, we always bounce stuff back and forth. He's like, because he asked Julian, you really had a zip on your fastball, and then we were talking about that during the game. It's like, this looked like a very strong-armed quarterback showing off his arm.
Yeah, the throws were there. There was not a lot of – there was one where Tate was kind of behind the defender and kind of had to slow down. It was bad throw, and I'm doing the air quotes, where he had to come back, and instead of a touchdown, it was merely a 40-whatever-yard completion, which is, if that's bad, there are a lot of people that would sign up for bad. But it felt like this was – you kind of had okay, you're going to show something else. And I don't know if that's Julian taking it personally necessarily, as much as Ohio State, the offensive coaching staff, wants to show that, okay, they can do this, they can do that. You're putting some stuff on film. You're making it so that people can't just, we're just going to sit on the 3 things that we know they can do. And so now you're putting some more stuff on film. I mean, you saw it on special teams too. Like, you didn't have to do the throwback punt thing. But the fact that that's out there now, that's certainly going to probably slow down some punt coverages and spread out some punt coverages a little bit more, which might open something up later down the road.
That was a good play, because I was watching the replay, waiting to see, is Lorenzo Styles just hanging out? It's like, no, he ran, down there to get that throw. It was a perfect throw from Brandon Ennis. One guy keeps them from making that a touchdown. So it was good to see actually the special teams won their battle. Which, are they a 500 team this year? The Ohio State special teams?
They're actually relatively high up in, I think, FEI. I can pull it up, but they were they've made most of their kicks, and I know Jaden Fielding missed a 52-yarder today, but they've made most of their kicks. They haven't had any real debacle plays on special teams, really. They've had, they gave up a long kick return to Washington, but that was a kick return out to the 40 or whatever it was. It wasn't a 100-yard return, anything like that. They've been fine on special teams, and I think there was the general reaction to the throwback on that was, oh, look, they're trying on special teams now. And it's like, they don't have to, this is not a team that has to win on special teams. They just have to not lose on special teams.
Yeah. Don't be a detriment, and everything else should be fine. Mm-hmm. And even if you are a detriment, generally that's just going to be a 28-10 win instead of a 31-3 or something like that. But overall, just a completely dominating effort by the Buckeyes. We're talking a little bit about the running game, and Kevin's in the chat asking if people are concerned about the running game. As Mozart's Ghost said, I am concerned about it, yes. Maybe not if they would give Bo 25 carries. They want to save him for later. That is one issue, I think, when you want to build the running game and get it going, but you won't let anybody build up a sweat. And he had 13 carries. CJ Donaldson only 3. James Peoples came in, cleaned up at the end. Isaiah West had 1. I don't know that you're going to get anybody going. And really, in a 42-3 game, and there's going to be more 42-3 games, I don't think it's important. But still, you would like to see some domination of the running game. And you saw they went over 200 against Ohio, and, of course, Grambling. But against Minnesota, is 133 yards against Minnesota equal to, what's that mean for next week against Illinois? Because I don't think it means more.
No, it doesn't.
Unless they're more serious about it and they hit a home run.
Right. It doesn't mean more against Illinois. I think Illinois, it might mean more against Illinois because Illinois might decide to take away the pass instead of the run. And then, this is not a concern to me right now, but I would also kind of like to have, the drive where they run the ball for 8 yards, and then they run the ball for 6 yards, and then the band plays that song that sounds like a train, and then they run for 8 yards again, and it's just, you kind of get the ball rolling. Like, they had 2023, they had a drive right after halftime, I think, up in Ann Arbor, where it was like Chip Trayanum was in, and they just were like boom, 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 right down the field, and then they stopped doing it. But you'd like to see that type of drive, just sort of know that it's in there, because you really haven't seen it. You've seen the Bo Jackson 64-yard run, and that's great. Like, I'm sure they would take one of those too. But you'd kind of like to see at some point them have just the 6 yards, 8 yards, 5 yards, 9 yards, 4 yards, 7 yards. I mean, just kind of just methodical, boom, 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 maybe run a little tempo. They didn't have to do that today, so they didn't do that today. Do you think that's in there, or do you think this is they haven't done it because they can't necessarily do that right now, or they can't do that, or they don't feel real confident that they can do that?
Well, Ryan Day said today that they don't save things for other teams, but they also don't break everything out for one particular team. So I think there's still, I know there's still more to the running game, and it is a long season, and they ran the ball pretty well in the playoffs when they needed to. I think Texas held them, but they went over 200 against Notre Dame in the championship game. So they saved some things, and we'll see what kind of flourishes, like having Carnell Tate in the backfield twice today, where he was available to be a pitch man if needed at some point, was interesting there. So they're still adding to things. I don't know. We'll see what the breakdowns are of 12 and 13 personnel. You know, they scored at 14 as well, but they still have some room to grow.
Super chat from Mike Farino. I'm very sorry about messing up your name, Tom. It's actually, I think it's funnier. We should just have, like, calling me Tim is good. Making the same typo in your name and calling you Tiny, that's better. I'm not demanding it. I'm just saying, listen, if you understand comedy, that's
if you understand super chats.
Yes. Fun fact, Patricia and Ohio State have given up fewer points through 5 games than Knowles gave up in the first half alone to UCLA today. That was 27 points to UCLA in the
to be fair, Tom, I believe UCLA is really good this year.
I mean, of all their wins this year, that was certainly the best one today.
Yeah. How many?
I feel like we need to have the one bad game does not mean Jim Knowles is a bad defensive coordinator. Jim Knowles, you look at the track record for Jim Knowles over multiple stops at multiple schools in Ohio State. And, I know every time a coach leaves, immediately they are a bum. And believe me, we will let you know when a coach leaves and they are a bum. We have had that conversation before. Jim Knowles is a great defensive coordinator. That was a full system failure for Penn State. That was not just offense. That was not just defense. That was not just special teams. That was not just coaching. That was just, like the end of the Matrix where he basically shuts it down and just everything just kind of goes. Brrr. That was Penn State football today.
Oregon should get a half a win.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's the Oregon has now beaten Penn State 1.5 times this year.
Yes.
No question.
And we don't need to spend 45 minutes on Penn State.
I'm sure the audience wouldn't mind if we did.
But we could certainly talk about it throughout the show. But that was we were doing something. I was doing something, and I checked the score, and it was 17-3 or 17-7. I was
17-7,
like, what the, cussing out loud, just somebody just assaulted me. And it's then you just keep watching it. It just gets worse and worse. And then that last play, James Franklin, no matter the offensive coordinator, whoever's calling plays for him, cannot help but do some sort of a quarterback running back mesh when you need 5 yards.
They only needed 2 this time.
And it's they just can't get out of their own way with this. And whether it's – and there was no Joey Bosa. There was no Sam Hubbard. There was no JT Tuimoloau how to blow this thing up. It was UCLA dudes doing it, and they absolutely blew it up.
Well, that last play looked like Tecmo Super Bowl, where the defense guesses your play, and it's just how are there 9 guys on top of my quarterback in an 1/8 of a second? That was UCLA's defense. And Penn State they have found a way to lose the last 2 games, and very different games and very different atmospheres and very different opponents. And boy, they have found a way to lose both of those games.
Yeah. And that, I think that loss helped maybe Ohio State focus a little bit.
I think that was the difference between Ohio State maybe coming out a little slow and Ohio State. They did fall behind 3-0. It's not like they came out and just whomped them, but Ohio State was just very no nonsense. Ohio State was more talented than Minnesota, and Ohio State said, "I step on your head for 4 quarters, and that's it." And it was just
Stop
kind of
moving.
It was as just okay. You down there. They missed a field goal on the opening drive. Touchdown. A couple punts surrounding halftime, and then touchdown. It was just bum. Never a doubt. And that, we probably can we move on to the Ohio State defense? Like we've talked about the Penn State. Well, okay, we get super chat from Jordan Kaplan before we do that. Jordan Kaplan super chat: would it cause a tear in the fabric of time and space if there was a team coached by both Steve Sarkisian and James Franklin, specifically the second half versions of them? We probably need to have the Steve Sarkisian, quarterback guru probably needs to get put on the shelf for a little while because that has not been a thing for a while.
No, it hasn't, and he's had only two of the all-time greatest quarterback prospects to work with, and maybe James Franklin as the coach in waiting at Texas. It worked well at Maryland, but he was Ralph Friedgen's coach in waiting way back in the day.
Maybe Clark Lee gets the Texas job, and then James Franklin goes back to Vanderbilt. Who says no?
Vanderbilt?
Yeah, maybe Vanderbilt. Yeah, maybe Vanderbilt.
Kevin says James Franklin to UCLA.
Yeah.
Well, I tweeted this out.
The Bruins can win with him in the building. We know that.
James Franklin's first 12 years, maybe not including this loss, and I think maybe it did include this loss, but his first 12 years at Penn State are better than Joe Paterno's first 12 years in the Big Ten and his last 12 years in the Big Ten. Now that's it's like 18 years or so that he was in the Big Ten, but his winning percentage is better than Paterno both times. Mm-hmm. So Joe Paterno's heyday, including the 94, that 94 team was really, really good. But the other times when they were good was all like independent. When they're making up their schedule, they're playing Temple 3 times a year. They play Penn 4 times a year. And that was that's no longer modern football back when Penn State was an independent. So since modern football, James Franklin has been better than Joe Paterno. Now, I say that because did Joe Paterno get them as high as they could be when they joined the Big Ten? Like, is there still room there?
Yeah.
Or is James Franklin getting them to the Final Four last year? Like, can they win a national championship? I didn't think Michigan could. Michigan found a way to do that. I think that they also were helped by one of the weaker Final Fours.
Among other things.
But to do that in a 12-team playoff, Penn State was very close to making it to the championship game last year.
Yes, they were. But to get to the semifinal, they played SMU and Boise State, which is, that was the absolute perfect season for Penn State because they reached the semifinals. They went to the Big Ten championship game. They had a reasonable performance in the Big Ten championship game. And no one changed their opinion on James Franklin one iota because it was like, he made the college football playoff semifinals. Who did he beat to get there? Well, and you look at Penn State. You're talking about the 94 Penn State team. They had some great teams in the late 90s too. 97, that team that beat Ohio State 31-27 in Happy Valley. 99, they were the number 1 team in the country for a while. I think they might have lost to Minnesota, and that was where
so.
But then,
that was out of the blue.
I just pulled. Yeah, I have that up. They lost 24-23 to Minnesota, actually. But the 97 team, the 98 team, the 99 team, they all lost 3 games. So James Franklin losing 2 games a season, that's actually an improvement in some ways. Now, it's boring. It's stale now. And now, if you were bored of that, well, good news. He's got a whole new thing for you.
And Joe Paterno did beat Ohio State from time to time.
Yes, he beat Ohio State in 97 and in 99.
In 2005.
1994.
Yeah, so they got that. And that's something that James Franklin, frankly, hasn't. And so I understand all of the frustration. What I would say is recognize who you are.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that. I don't know when Penn State fans are going to get to acceptance. I'm going to guess they're still in anger right now.
Yes, they very much in anger. The last time, I think, the last time a top 10 team lost to an unranked team in the Big Ten was maybe like one of these stats. The last time was the the Franklin, the 9 overtime game that we watched, in Indiana
in 2021,
almost getting late for the game because we're just sitting in the hotel watching all of these overtimes. So some rarefied air as James Franklin joins James Franklin. Bad losses.
We should get back to Ohio State because they also played a football game today of less consequence than the Penn State one, but not that you would have expected that beforehand. The Ohio State defense.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, the Ohio State defense. And Penn State, Minnesota is limited. Minnesota they are an is what it is kind of team. And we watched Minnesota play Rutgers last week and came away very impressed with Drake Lindsay, and he completed 80% of his passes or whatever it was, and 341 yards and a couple touchdowns. And Jalen Smith had a 74-yarder, and he was like, oh boy, they have some weapons there. They can't run the ball at all. They couldn't run the ball at all against Rutgers, and we knew they weren't going to be able to run the ball at all against Ohio State. But they couldn't throw the ball either. They couldn't do anything against this defense. And you mentioned the opening drive, 13 plays, 66 yards on the opening possession. The next that got you through the first half of the first quarter. After that, 3 plays, 8 yards, 3 plays, 2 yards, 5 plays, 19 yards, 3 plays, -6 yards, 5 plays, 17 yards, 3 plays, no yards, 3 plays, -1 yards. And then in the fourth quarter, when they got to, when it got into the fourth quarter and Ohio State had, officially made them go squish, it was, it's 35-3. And at that point, they put together 10 plays, 52 yards, 5:29 off the clock of just kind of, they were in no hurry. The game was long over at that point, and it was just kind of, okay, well, and then they ran the ball, and it was, congratulations, great job. The Ohio State defense, I keep waiting for someone to go, aha, we have, Matt Patricia has run out of tricks, or someone has figured out, okay, well, here's, okay, now you've seen it, and now you know when he does this. I mean, he does not seem to have run out of tricks, and he does not seem to have run out of good football players.
I was just counting up the passing stats in that first drive. I believe Drake Lindsay threw for 65 yards on that first drive.
Oh,
66 yards.
66 yards on the first drive, 28 yards the rest of the game. That's in the last 3.5 quarters, 28 yards passing.
That's pretty good. That's
great.
That's some good defense, and the coverage was there. It's not like he was constantly pressured, but the way these guys are covering right now has been very impressive. There's nowhere to throw the ball for the most part, and you can't be so accurate that you're dropping dimes because there are no, there's no room for the dime.
Right.
It's the smallest coin, and there's no room for it.
Right. Yeah. No. There was nothing for long stretches, and Minnesota basically had. They couldn't run the ball for the first, there was like, after that first drive, I think there was one point where Ohio State had not run the ball particularly well, but the rushing yardage was like 40-6. Minnesota couldn't run, and it wasn't like Ohio State was piling up a ton of sacks. It was just, they couldn't run the ball at all. But on the other hand, they couldn't throw the ball at all. So it's impossible to say whether they had a good night or not.
They could punt because that Australian dude was booming them a couple of times, but yeah, this was just a complete suffocation and an annihilation.
I want to get to one of the PJ Fleck sound bites real quickly here. And this is the one that is PJ Fleck on Ohio State defense. That's the first one we're going to get to. This was, he was asked sort of, hey, what, was this a good experience for your offense, basically? And, the answer turned into him talking about Matt Patricia and the Ohio State defense. So let's let you hear a little bit from, and PJ Fleck is a little bit verbose. So yes. This answer kind of goes a while and drifts in a couple different directions.
That's one of the best defenses I've ever seen in 13 years. And I mean that because I never met Coach Patricia. I got a chance to see him after the game, but it's not just the players and the depth. That's exceptional. That's off the charts. That's some of the best I've seen, but it's the schematic pieces that make it so complex, where every single play is a different front structure, blitz structure, coverage structure. Now in the second half, they went more to, one rat. And they could do that. We weren't able to create any separation, and they could stop the run. So, but it was that was pretty dominating, that's for sure. They got really good players. They got a really good scheme. They complement each other very well, and they put you in that phone booth. I mean, we knew that's why I went for it on fourth down. It was 14-3 at the time. I mean, it's 4th and 1, guys. I can punt it, but would you rather have a 90-yard touchdown or a chance to get a first down? I think they showed that the rest of the game. So, I mean, I knew that prior to maybe that happening. We're the ones studying the film for 67 hours, 70 hours a week. So I knew that was going to be something we had to aggressively go do. And 14-3, I mean, it's a huge call in the game, but it's the right call because we punt it. I mean, they didn't turn the ball over all game. They might go 90, and they showed that they could do that in 5-6 plays anyway. So I had to give something to our football team. It wasn't like 4th and 4. It was 4th and 1. And we're going to learn from it, get better, and got to be able to get that.
So I like that. I thought it was weird that he was all defensive about it. I don't know that anyone is going to look at that and go, well, why would you go for that? Why would you not punt and play field position? Like, if you watch the game, you know the answer to that. So I thought that was a little odd, like he was anticipating people jumping him for that. But, the stuff he said at the beginning about the Ohio State defense and Patricia and the players, it's just a lot of that press conference was kind of like just a big shrug emoji. Like, man, what do you want me to do? Did you see the game?
Yeah, and just how you said when we started, this was the game that we all expected. Yeah. I think this is very much the game that he expected as well. So what am I supposed to do? So, yeah, you had an opportunity on that 14-3 on that 4th down to get something. Didn't work. Yeah, most of the stuff's not going to work because that's just the situation you're in. It is interesting to hear other coaches talk about the way Ohio State is putting their defense on the field and the NFL nature of it. And we've seen Michigan do that for a few years now with their Baltimore Ravens tie-ins, and now Ohio State doing that with Matt Patricia. And it's – I don't want to say it's a decided schematic advantage, especially given the New England Patriots tree. But everybody that comes into contact with this Ohio State defense is telling you it's like, first you got the players, then you've got the scheme, then you've got the tying the two together, and quarterback is always confused, and the offensive line is always confused, and it continues to be impressive to watch. And we are still in the early stages of this defense.
Right. And that's the thing that's crazy is this is the first week of October. They're through 5 games now. And so you're almost, after next week, you're halfway through the regular season. But you could have 4 or even 5 more games after that. You could be less than a third of the way through the entire season right now. And when you look at how much different stuff they've rolled out and how everyone they've been catching everyone on their back foot, this was very clearly Ohio State had better players. You could have a bad defensive coordinator and still win this game because you have far better players than Minnesota does. But they have caught everyone on their back foot. PJ Fleck, you heard him say there, like, you're watching 70 hours of film a week. Yeah. It's not like that. This was like, whoa, they got a new coordinator. Oh, so they bring something different now. Well, they know, they've seen it, they've watched, and I'm sure they've gone back and watched hours and hours and hours of Patricia in the NFL and hours of other Belichick tree guys to try and get a sense for what to expect. Last week, Jed Fish in Washington, their defensive coordinator last year was literally Steve Belichick. They have all the Belichick tree knowledge in that building, and you saw how much good it did them. They've given up 0 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. They gave up the one kind of fluky one to Ohio, and before that, they gave up the one in kind of not quite garbage time, but kind of, it wasn't garbage time, but it was 14-0, and it was in the final 4 minutes of the game where you're playing probably a little more conservatively because you're just trying to keep it in front of you. That's the list of touchdowns. End of list. It's Ryan Day's line about the punt reel for Washington. Like, it didn't take long to go through their punt reel. They'd only punted twice all year. Well, it doesn't take long to go through the opponent touchdown reel for Ohio State. There's only been 2.
Yeah, and Lorenzo Styles is right there. Jermaine Matthews is right there.
Yeah,
on the touchdown to Texas. So they've been you could call it scheme, you could say whatever. It's all of it, and the talent is there, and part of that talent, Kenyatta Jackson, goes down again. I assume, I don't know, because couldn't really see. It looked like he was a little wobbly. I don't know if it was he banged his head on hitting the quarterback, which strange to see that happen. But if that's a second possible slight concussion of some sort, that's that's a concern moving forward for him. But other than that, overall, like there was. What's the worst thing that happened to the defense today? I don't know. Not they were on point the entire time.
Yeah, I had someone say that it was maybe a stinger and not a concussion, which it could be. He looked unsteady on his feet. So whichever one it was, if that was about the worst thing that happened to the defense.
The stinger would make more sense because he hit his shoulder on the quarterback,
right?
And you don't really see somebody get their bell rung by hitting the quarterback that way.
Yeah, and he was out there. They took his helmet, which is what they would do probably for either of those. So I don't know that that's useful information other than he wasn't going to come back. We knew he wasn't going to come back. He came back out after halftime without shoulder pads on. Like he was very clearly done for the day, but
no update from Ryan Day.
No update from Ryan. Okay. Well, that's again, that's information that doesn't tell us anything because they don't generally provide updates on any of that stuff. But yeah, the defense on the whole just was very good again. And we've done a lot of this talking about like good players and Matt Patricia's scheme. But I think the players deserve some credit for how well they're executing the scheme. And, this is not, you're doing stuff that's different and new and maybe a little more complicated than what's been done in the past. And the players have just absorbed it all. And to your point, they've given up 2 touchdowns and it wasn't like, well, they had one spectacular bust where all the players were running in the wrong direction and 3 guys ran out of bounds. And no, it's been, the touchdown pass against Texas, Jermaine Matthews, to your point, was right there. I mean, missed the ball by 6 inches or something like that. And then Lorenzo Styles was right there and just didn't get the guy on the ground. And, and then it turned into an extended play, but that wasn't a ball thrown into the end zone either. That was a ball thrown to the 35-yard line where you thought maybe they'd get him down. And then you see what happens to teams when they get into the red zone. No one has scored in the red zone against Ohio State yet this year. Or scored a touchdown against. I mean, that's insane. It's early October and they haven't played nobody.
Right.
They haven't. I think the Texas game is starting to take on a little bit of a different look than it had week 1. But Washington is a solid football team. Ohio is, they're a MAC team, but they're a solid football team. Texas is not terrible. Texas is not number 1 in the nation like they were coming in, but they're not terrible. Minnesota is not a great team, but Minnesota's fine. Minnesota's going to go to a bowl game this year. I think I called them the most 7-5 coded team in the history of college football, and they're going to go 7-5 this year, and they're going to go to a bowl game, and they'll be fine. And Ohio State hasn't just like, they beat them. Like they erased Minnesota. That was a team that's going to go to a bowl game. That was just like, they could have saved a lot of time by just not getting on the airplane and just saying like,
42-3, we'll take it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just it's fine. We'll take that. We have not yet talked about Carnell Tate.
Yep.
Or in any great detail.
The Carnell Tate game.
But it was the Carnell Tate game in the early part of the second quarter, and then he kept going. Yeah,
I know he had like 115 or 150 yards receiving about halfway through the second quarter. And it looked like maybe they're going to try to get him 200 in the second half there, and it didn't quite happen. But 9 for 183, 1 touchdown, as we said, 44-yarder, 48-yarder, 49-yarder, 10 targets, 9 catches. You'll take that kind of action every time.
16th best wide receiver performance in terms of receiving yards with 183. That is pretty darn good. That actually is going to flow very nicely. The graphic says pick your poison. That is going to flow very nicely into the other PJ Fleck soundbite that I wanted to get to. And this one is titled PJ Fleck on Pass Defense Issues. And he was sort of asked, like, hey, what went wrong for your pass defense? And this is another one where it's long and it kind of goes a couple different places. But his press conferences are like you're gonna walk out of there going, well, I know what that guy thinks. Like he is not going to sugarcoat it. He's going to kind of tell you. So, okay, PJ Fleck, what went wrong with your pass defense?
I'm not sure if it's necessarily pass defense issues, rather than just they have really good players, then they force you into doing something that makes you one-dimensional. I mean, pick your poison. You'll be sitting here asking me the same question of why we gave up 9 yards a carry. I mean, it is what it is. And you're going back and forth, and when you're getting pressure on the quarterback, you can get some sacks in that situation. It would help. We just weren't able to get any pressure on the quarterback. So it's top down. Right, so it works. All 11 guys working cohesively. It's not just pass defense or pass coverage or the corners or the safeties. We didn't get any pressure on the quarterback, which allowed those guys to run down the field, which allowed the quarterback to throw the ball unpressured, 50, 60 yards down the field to 2 first-round draft picks. I mean, if you could throw the ball 60 yards, you could probably do that with nobody pressuring you. And that's why it's all 11 working together. And again, I mean, it didn't matter what we called. They executed against every single call we made. So whether it was against a run or whether it was against a pass. So you got to give them credit too. This isn't like I'm sitting here saying, oh, like I said, we screwed it up, and they were better than us.
They were better than Minnesota.
PJ Fleck didn't seem to find fault with Ohio State's running game. He seemed to think whatever they did, it was good enough. The super chat that just went away from Rob H. In hindsight, do you think Ryan Day is wishing he had taken a harder look at Twitter before hiring Matt Patricia? Great question. Great question. Why not crowdsource reactions or possible reactions? Float a balloon. Like Ryan Day should just tweet out, hey, thinking about some names, maybe like a Matt Patricia. What's the vibe? Vibe check. What is it? How you feeling about that? Would you like that? And that's one of those where you tweet it and then you close mentions. Like you just walk away from Twitter. That's what it would have been like.
Well, if you look back at some of the additions that Ohio State has made, both through the transfer portal and in terms of coaching staffs, Bill O'Brien everyone kind of went, why on earth would you do that? This is a terrible idea. And Bill O'Brien wasn't here long enough to have any kind of a track record, really positive or negative. But he's gone on and he's done fine at Boston College. When Will Howard came to Ohio State, why is Ohio State taking in the runner-up in the Kansas State quarterback derby? And why is Ohio? Philip Daniels. I mean, my expectation was, sure, bring him in. Why not? But he's not going to play this year. And then Josh Simmons.
San Diego State's right tackle is going to be your left tackle.
Well, San Diego State's right tackle, who had the PFF grade of he was basically the PFF equivalent of maybe got a crocodile in spelling. Like it was a disaster, and he had like the most penalized guy and you're taking the right tackle from San Diego State who can't stop false starting and holding, and you're going to make, LOL, he's going to, and then, it turns out it was fine. Like it's, I think at this point, you kind of have to look at Mark Pantoni in the personnel department and go, you know what? I think these guys might know what they're doing. And you kind of have to look at Ryan Day. Not everyone hits, you're never going to bat 1,000 on assistant coach hires and on coordinator hires and all that kind of stuff. And Ryan Day has not batted 1,000 on it. Nick Saban had some clunkers. Urban Meyer had some clunkers. I mean, the greatest coaches in the world are not going to bat 1,000 on it. But of anyone, I think Ryan Day deserves about as much benefit of the doubt on any of this stuff as anyone. I mean, the last 2 defensive coordinator hires have worked out really well, and we'll see. They could give up 42 points to Georgia in the playoff this year, and then everyone's an idiot again. But so far, I mean, it's hard to look at the trend line of the Jim Knowles 3 years and then the early returns on Matt Patricia and not think, well, I mean, Ryan Day, yes, he knows offense, but what does he know about defense and hiring a good defensive coordinator?
He's 3 of 4.
He's batting 750 for sure.
So I think that's better than most head coaches. Jim Tressel had some clunker assistant coaches, defensive coordinators, Mark Snyder. That lasted 1 year where before he's like, why don't you, Marshall's calling.
Yes.
Let
Yeah.
me call Marshall for you. Things like that. But he would keep his offensive assistants forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forever, other than like the good ones.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. And, you go through the Ed Warren or Tim Beck years with Urban. I mean, that was one that worked until it didn't. Like they had back-to-back 62-point games and then a 0-point game that was just a couple weeks after that. I mean, and didn't do much against Michigan that year. The score looks impressive when you add in a double overtime and you add in the Malik Hooker interception return, but the offense didn't do a whole heck of a lot there either. So, Urban had some good and some bad. Ryan Day's doing pretty darn well with that kind of stuff right now.
I think the last thing for me, Julian Sayin will improve his 79% completion percentage with his 23 of 27 for 85% completion percentage, 326 yards, 3 touchdowns. On point again. Really, really impressive. And I think he's his third 300-yard game in 5 games. It seems like he's in full control and looks like a guy that you can win with.
Oh, yeah. I think you've seen – I think across the sport right now, how many – like great national championship, like legitimate national championship, not any obvious flaw kind of teams are there. Not that Ohio State's a perfect team. They're certainly not. And as we said earlier, you'd like to see them able to run the ball a little better. So it's not, these are not perfect teams, but there's not an obvious like, oh boy, that's really, this specific thing is going to lose them a game at some point in the CFP. I think Ohio State. I think Oregon, I think is probably in that conversation. Lord help me, I'm about to say the name Miami Hurricanes. I think I'm out of teams. I mean, there are other teams that, a team outside of that group of 3 could win the national championship. I have not said any SEC teams in that list, and undoubtedly someone from the SEC will get hot at some point and will be. But you can look at Georgia and you can look at Alabama and you can kind of go like, I don't. Texas, like, you just lost to Florida. LSU, like,
everybody's waiting for John Mateer to come back for Oklahoma.
Right, yeah, and Oklahoma with John Mateer looked very good against Michigan. But when you look at Julian Sayin, to bring this back to your point, he's doing what you need him to do. I don't. I'm gonna sound a lot like Ryan Day here. Julian Sayin right now is not good enough to win the national championship. Julian Sayin with a progression that is sort of following the trend line of what you've already seen from him this year, and just sort of you don't need and then a miracle happens. He just needs to continue to grow and develop and learn and get better, and they need to run the ball a little better and all that kind of stuff. This is an Ohio State team that can win the national championship. I came into this year thinking, well, they're not going to win the national championship this year, but they should, make the playoff. This is an Ohio State team that can win the national championship. I'm not saying they're going to,
right? But
I don't have any doubt in my mind that this is an Ohio State team that could win the national championship.
Yeah, no, nothing we've seen suggests that they couldn't, and everything that we've seen suggests that they just might.
Yeah,
but there are still plenty of games to play. So I think that will do it. If we're all caught up on our super chats and whatnot. So if you could hit the thumbs up before you go, we'd appreciate that. And of course, you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up now. Become a member. Say hello to us there on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeffrey Weiss Columbus. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.